But what's funny about this is that in this movie, you get the impression that, the hitman is like this super alpha male, basically a super soldier, who has no compunction. He's just a total badass. He's not fazed by any emotions at all. He's a suave ladies' man. And it's like, is that really, or are hitmen more like, like soy men? I'm sure there's both types. I'm sure that, you've got a lot of former Green Beret and people like that, Navy SEALs, Black Ops guys who were recruited into or became hitmen. I'm sure that's there. But the ones that we always hear about, like the famous hitmen, they're like incel soy dudes. They're not Michael Fassbender, James Bond or whatever. What do you guys think? I'm serious. They're like soy Han, right? I mean, come on, dude. Soy Han. And that's why I'm saying I think that it's a lot easier to find a patsy who's totally emotionally unstable and will do these sort of outlandish things based on an uncontrolled emotional reaction. But you see that the downside of that is a lot of these people are also not very reliable. So you can nudge a loon, but a lot of times a loon is not very effective, and perhaps that's why the establishment, if in fact they have been nudging these loons to go after Trump, they don't seem to be very effective. So let's look at some of the female assassins and let's see if we find any patterns between them and the soy assassins.
Female assassins.
The assassins.
Since have made it into the history books, each one their own tale to tell as they've wielded guns, blades, and other deadly weapons against some high-profile targets. Keep watching to discover the most notorious female assassins of all time. Of a revolutionary. Living in a world where the Russian government was on the verge of collapse, she spent her youth.
So here we have a Bolshevik woman? Yes, so Fanny Kaplan, Bolshevik female assassin who turned on Lenin. I forgot about this one.
Mingling with anarchist and socialist revolutionary groups. She was arrested for terrorism in 1906 and then spent a decade in Siberian labor camps. By 1917, Russia's Tsarist government fell apart and Kaplan was released, but she wasn't pleased with the world around her. A member of the Socialist Revolutionary Party, she favored the democratically elected Constituent Assembly, but Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks felt otherwise, as they dissolved the Constituent Assembly, aimed for a Bolshevik dictatorship, and signed a treaty that gave in to German and Austro-Hungarian demands. Altogether, Kaplan saw Lenin as a danger to Russia. On August 30th, 1918, she found him shortly after he'd given a speech at the Hammer and Sickle factory. She shot him 3 times, hitting him in the arm and neck, and he was whisked away to the Kremlin. Meanwhile, she was captured, then taken for 3 days of torture and interrogation. She stuck to her story that she acted alone, refusing to implicate any other socialist revolutionaries, and she was executed on September 3rd.
All right, so there's our first example female assassin. She sounds like she was probably manipulated to do this. I don't think typically women just go off half-cocked into being assassins for no reason without some sort of handler, some sort of operation. But it doesn't sound like it was very well planned or thought out. And this reminds me of a movie that we just watched, which I did not think was very good. And the reason I watched it is that it was billed as, this is like a new Hitchcock. There's a new Hitchcock trauma, mind control, fractured psyche woman movie out. Okay, and now as a film, it wasn't badly made or anything, but spoiler alert, my problem with this Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain movie was, so basically you have this traumatic event where a child accidentally dies and Anne Hathaway basically loses it. But her losing it means that she basically becomes like the perfect serial killer assassin mom in the 1950s with no assassin training. She basically, first of all, there's no internet. Like she suddenly knows as just a regular 50s mom how to like utilize chloroform, stage suicide, unalivings. She knows how to like move the gas tank thing in the whatever to make the house blow up. I mean, it's just, there's no mom in the 1950s that knows how to do all the shit Michael Fassbender does in The Killer. It's just kind of ridiculous. So that's why I thought this movie was preposterous. But we're supposed to think, it's kind of, I guess, it's funny if you watch movies, like feminism now means that not just that women are equal to and better than men in all areas of masculine endeavors, such as building civilizations and frontline black ops and super soldiers. Like, now women are actually better villains than men and other women. So like, women are like also the best villain, you see. So go Slay Queens. Shout out to all the Slay Queens out there, because you guys are not just better than men at menning. You're better at villains than villainings, you see. So I did not think this was a very good movie. It's kind of ridiculous. So let's see who our next one is. Now we go back to the French Revolution. Now you'll notice so far we've had two, and these are revolutionaries. Charlotte Corday is a French revolutionary assassin. The revolutionaries are the same spirit and manifestation of what we're dealing with in these boomer, like, mind-controlled operatives of today, right? It's the same revolutionary philosophy. They think they're fighting a revolution against the fascists and Donald Trump and the Russians, and it's completely fictional. It's all just like in their heads. It's wild.
The least. It's also a mess that's been immortalized in art, and one of those pieces, the death of Marat, comes with quite a story behind it. Jean-Paul Marat was a voice for the radical side of the French Revolution. He rejected much of the social order, calling for the complete fall of the aristocracy while refuting more moderate revolutionaries. He also saw himself as a martyr, and a martyr he would indeed become. Charlotte Corday was born into a once aristocratic family, and she came to hate all that Marat stood for. So she traveled to Paris, intending to kill him at the Bastille Day parade on July 14, 1793, only for the festivities to be cancelled. Undeterred, she managed to solicit an interview with him. On July 13, 1793, she found him in the bath, pulled a knife from her bodice, and stabbed him in the chest, killing him instantly. In the aftermath, Corday let the police...
So essentially, again, another woman hyped up into thinking that she is part of some, the right side of history, right? And so the right side of history has given her the vindication, the justification to engage in this kind of stuff. I'm not going to play all this next one, but you probably know about Squeaky Fromm, and she as one of the Manson girls, and of course, post Tom O'Neill, everybody probably has heard. I've been arguing that Manson had obvious CIA connections, probably with some kind of mind control thing for a long time. Tom O'Neill's recent popular book has pretty much vindicated that as well. And that could play into this attempt. I think Gerald Ford was a completely corrupt, wicked dude. But that doesn't mean that there couldn't be other wicked people that want to take you out for various reasons. So exactly what the motivations were in regard to the attempt on Ford, I don't know, but it's not just the situation with Scientology and Manson going through the theta clear level of Scientology. It's also the connections to various aspects of Satanism and witchcraft amongst the Manson girls. One of them was a member of the Church of Satan. I always get it mixed up whether it's Squeaky Fromm or the other girl. Do you guys remember which one's the Church of Satan girl? She danced topless for Church of Satan founder Anton LaVey. Child of Satan, Child of God. That's her, Susan Atkins. Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. So it's not Squeaky, but Squeaky Fromm, probably subject to the same types of mind control that Charles was doing, that Chaz was doing on the other ladies.
Hitchhiked to Venice, California, where she met Charles Manson and became a loyal follower of his. During his trial for the 1969 Tate LaBianca killings, she stood outside the courthouse with an X carved into her forehead and spent time in jail to protect him. And
yes, actually, the person in the chat, I think you nailed it right. Why are women useful in this? The same way the soy men are, is that women and soy men are easily manipulated. Correct. They can be manipulated through emotion. They can be manipulated into doing things based on, absurd, idealistic, utopian visions, which obviously don't match up to reality. So there was 2 assassins after Ford. Gerald Ford must have been wrapped up in some serious corruption to be, like to have 2 women coming after you.
5-year-old woman whom the Secret Service had already evaluated, determining that she posed little threat. Nevertheless, on September 21st, she had her firearm confiscated on an illegal handgun charge. It wasn't enough. The next day, on September 22nd, Ford was leaving a World Affairs Council meeting at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco when Moore fired at him from 40 feet away. The first shot missed.
So another woman, much like Squeaky Fromm, thought that she needed to take out Gerald Ford. Interesting. Violet Gibson. Let's see. Who is this woman? Now, I think this might be the woman who had paranoid delusions. And one thing that happens is that some of these assassins have a tendency also to have paranoid delusions, and if they're fingered as having that proclivity, that might actually make them very useful to be used in this type of a thing.
Of life. Violet Gibson, for example, was born a noble, her father being the Lord High Chancellor of Ireland between 1885 and 1905. She was even a debutante in the court of Queen Victoria at age 18. But things spiraled after the death of her brother. She lapsed into periods of extreme grief and was prone to bouts of hysteria. She had a nervous breakdown in 1922 and was committed to a mental asylum and declared insane. 2 years later, she moved to a Roman convent where she was obsessed with the ideas of martyrdom, convinced that God wanted her to kill someone. In 1925, she shot herself in the chest but survived. And then...
So she is a Roman Catholic saint. Like, what's the difference between this woman and Margaret Mary Alacoque, right? Like, I'm not seeing a whole lot of difference between the miraculous claims of Margaret Mary Alacoque and Violet Gibson. Here she is in a convent claiming that she needs to be martyred by assassinating someone.
Her obsession shifted to Benito Mussolini. On April 7, 1926, Gibson wore dark clothes as she headed to find Mussolini after he'd just given a speech on medicine. She carried a...
Now, think about this. Let's say you are a foreign power. Let's say we're one of the Allies, and we know that there is this insane woman in a Roman Catholic convent who thinks that it's her job, her duty, to take out Mussolini. Well, if I was a cunning intelligence handler operative for the Allies, I might want to go to this woman and befriend her, make her feel accepted, find out what she never had in her life. Maybe she didn't have a father figure. I become her daddy figure. This is what handlers always do. Go watch the movie, the last Philip Seymour Hoffman movie. That's exactly what he does to the Muslim dude. He becomes his daddy figure, and then he's able to manipulate him. And again, like, obviously this makes perfect sense. Of course, like, an allied handler would totally want to utilize this insane woman to try to, you absolutely, girl, slay queen, you need to be vindicated. We'll probably make you a Roman Catholic saint if you take him out.
Gun and a black veil and a bottle of poison, intending to glorify God with his death. As Mussolini walked through the nearby crowds, she jumped out and took 2 shots at him. The first grazed his nose, while the gun misfired on the second. Mussolini was entirely unconcerned, and the police...
Grazed his nose, barely grazed his nose. Mussolini, great man. They fired shots, it only grazed his nose, grazed my ear.